for taking the time. We're really excited that you're all here to hear about some of the really wonderful resources and opportunities that are available to you as first and second year STEM students. Perhaps as you're navigating towards, wondering if you want to pursue graduate school, PhD, master's programs, and we'll talk about kind of throughout this process. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Holly. I'm a fourth year PhD student in environmental engineering. And this is my third year working for the Office of Career Strategy as a peer advisor for those of you interested in going to graduate school in STEM fields. And so I'll let my counterpart, Tom, introduce himself quickly.
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm a sixth year in Renaissance Studies and History. This is my third month working in, maybe a little longer, in OCS, and I do what Holly does for the folks in humanities and social sciences.
Yeah, and sometimes there's some interesting distinctions between social science, STEM fields, and so it's great to have Tom on the call in case there are some of you interested in kind of sciencey, social sciencey fields. All of this will be probably relevant to you all as well. And so with that, I will just go ahead and get started by kind of outlining the framing of this presentation. And so if you're on this call, we're assuming you're a first or second year, so you're probably either in this first bucket of starting at Yale, or maybe you're closer to your sophomore year, thinking about choosing a major. And so we base these questions based on conversations that we were having with first and second year graduate students. So you're starting out at Yale and you're really excited, but also really overwhelmed. And maybe you're already thinking ahead to the future of maybe I want to go to graduate school. But also relatedly, what is graduate school? And how do I set myself up well to go there? And so underneath that umbrella, what resources are there for me to both explore whether graduate school might be a right fit for me, and then also to make myself a competitive applicant when I do end up going. So that's kind of maybe where some of you are at in this like exploratory phase. Maybe some of you are in the process of choosing a major and you're asking yourself, okay, I think I want to go to graduate school. What coursework should I really be focused on taking? Should I be focused on my GPA? I'm a little bit worried that I'm taking some challenging courses that might make my GPA take a hit. Should I be really concerned about that? And then does the major that I'm choosing right now mean that I'm going to go to graduate school for that same major? And we'll talk about that and navigating that process. And then lastly, we'll just talk about grad school writ large, of again, asking yourself this question of like, maybe I want to go to graduate school. Really, why should you go to graduate school? Like what factors are a part of that decision-making process? And then if you do decide that, yes, I want to go to graduate school, what defines a successful applicant? We'll talk about the different components of what an application looks like. And then lastly, what opportunities or careers will I have if I do decide to pursue graduate school? I had a number of people actually, and we'll get to this later, but I had a number of people actually, when I was applying to graduate school, tell me that I will in fact be overqualified for positions and that I will be pigeonholing myself into an academic space. So we'll talk a little bit about that and what options are available to you post graduate school, as Tom and I are both navigating what comes next. And so I think the best way to open up this presentation is just by defining graduate school in defining what it's not. And so I put this slide together primarily because in my first 2 years of graduate school, I was kind of floored and overwhelmed by, wow, this is really not what I was expecting. And so what I do want to emphasize is that it is not like your high school and probably some college coursework. I don't know about some of you, but I get this like intense satisfaction from doing a really hard problem set and like dealing with all these mathematical equations. And then at the end, like terms end up being negligible, things ends up canceling, and you get this nice boxed, simple answer, deriving an equation, coming to an answer. And so you're doing this problem set and you're getting to this really kind of succinct and complete answer. And so graduate school is not like that. It is like, in fact, the opposite of that. It's really very messy and undefined and very much more than you would think. You will not come to a simple, straightforward answer that you can box at the end. It's really a self-driven process that's marked more by questions than it is by answers. It's also very much not a place where you come in already knowing everything about your chosen field. And so we'll talk about this a little bit when it comes to choosing coursework. But you are going to get a PhD to learn more deeply. In the case of PhD, very, very deeply in a given field. So you do not need to feel this pressure that you need to come into graduate school already being an expert in whatever you want to study. That's why you're going to graduate school. If you already knew it, then you wouldn't need to go to graduate school in the first place. It's also not a rigidly defined experience with clear markers of progress or time. And again, this is something that I had to adjust to in my first couple of years transitioning out of the undergraduate mindset where you're submitting papers, you're submitting problem sets, you're taking exams. And so you're marked by semesters of like, oh, I finished this semester, you're marching your way to graduation. Oftentimes in PhD research, particularly, it's a mix of both backwards and forwards, and sometimes just lateral or no progress at all. And so that was definitely an adjustment for me in that, oh, I don't have these clear markers like I thought that I do. You really have to define those for yourself. They're not externally available to you. So just laying all of that out there of like, graduate school, sometimes there's some misconceptions, particularly when you're thinking about a research-based master's thesis or PhD. And so you can really only figure out if lab-based grad school is for you, whether that's lab like physical lab or like on a computer doing research. You can really only figure out whether it's something that you want to do by getting your feet wet and trying it out. And so that goes to our next question, which is how do I even begin to do that? And so the first thing that I want to misconception to dispel is I've had conversations with students say, well, I'm only a first year, I'm only a second year, I don't know what I'm doing. Faculty probably don't want to work with me. And that is very much not true. Many, many, many faculty members, I would say the majority of them, have openings for curious, passionate scientists like yourself. So you, again, don't need to know everything. You just have to have an interest and a curiosity. And so I just want to say that reaching out to faculty or trying to decide what faculty you want to work with, I first want to point you all to the choosing a faculty mentor page on the Office of Science and Quantitative Reasoning website. It really has a lot of really, really useful, like substantial tips for you to go about choosing your first faculty mentor. And just a couple of those that I want to highlight is firstly, you have to do your research on what research you want to do. So start by asking yourself what department or field you're really interested in, and then go to those department pages where they'll list the faculty members. From those faculty pages, go to their individual research websites and start getting a sense of what projects they have going on, whether it's something that you're interested in. And if at that point you're like, oh, this does seem like something I would be interested in, go to Google Scholar and just read some abstracts. I would say this is just good practice to get used to throughout your degree, throughout your time at Yale. There's a lot of really, really cool science happening, whether or not you want to be directly involved with it. So just go to Google Scholar and get a sense of what's happening in and around campus. And so after you've kind of read these you've read these abstracts, you've read some of these papers, and you're like, yes, this is exactly the person that I want to do research with. We recommend that you send a really concise email to a faculty member. And again, want to say that sometimes there's this fear of like, oh, they really don't want to hear from me. They do, I promise you, they do. Send a concise email to the faculty member or members that you're interested in, and then connect your specific research interests, and they don't have to be super narrowly defined. Again, this is maybe your first experience in a lab, but you did read those abstracts, you did read those papers. So be specific about what attracted you to that research, and then connect it to your interests and or past experience, and then ask if there's an available opportunity for undergraduates to join the lab. And I'll say at this point, it's very PI specific, but most of these research opportunities will not be overseen directly by the faculty member, but instead by a graduate student like myself or a postdoc. And so some faculty might connect you with that grad student or postdoc directly. That doesn't mean that they don't want to work with you. That just means that the person who will be most likely overseeing your day-to-day operations will be a graduate student. So if you get like the runaround from the faculty of, oh, you should contact this person. You should contact my second year graduate student, my fourth year graduate student to discuss opportunities. That does not mean that the faculty member does not want to work with you. At that point, they might also ask that you apply for your own funding if doing research over the summer. Some programs, like my department in environmental engineering, has funding for undergraduates to work throughout the year. But over the summer, when it's a more intensive experience, you're working maybe 40 hours a week, oftentimes faculty members will ask that you apply for your own funding if it is not already written into a faculty grant. So some faculty, sometimes you just get lucky and the faculty has in their grant explicitly funds set aside for mentoring and teaching undergraduates. But I would say more often than not, this is not the case. So then that gets to the question of, okay, but how do I get funding? And this is the meat of this presentation, which is that you have a lot of resources available to you. You are incredibly lucky to have so many resources available to you, in fact, in order to get yourself into lab. And so I first want to highlight, as an OCS person, that the Office of Career Strategy actually has awards that can provide a stipend for you to do a range of different, both domestic and international opportunities if you are on Yale financial aid. And so you can have a US-based experience. And I just copied this text from the Office of Career Strategy website, so you don't need to read it too closely. But if you see down here at the bottom, or science laboratory or other research opportunity, that is a research opportunity at Yale. And so they will give you a stipend for $4,000 to do research in a lab in the US. And then similarly for an international experience, they'll give you a slightly higher stipend to, again, participate in a science laboratory or other research opportunity. But then again, noting that in the times of COVID, sometimes opportunities will only be made available to you as remote opportunities. And so if this is a process that you're interested in, I would definitely go recommend talking to the career advisors at the Office of Career Strategy. So Tom and I mostly advise just on the logistics of applying to graduate school. The career advisors will have a lot more information and will be able to talk you through your personal application process for both of these experiences. And so there's also so much funding available through the Office of Science and Quantitative Reasoning, which is run by Dean Sandy Chang. If you haven't had a chance to connect with Sandy Chang, he is phenomenal, and the office is really phenomenal. So I definitely recommend that after this presentation, you go to their website and just look at all of the resources that they have available to you. One program that they run that I've actually had undergrads work with me through is the Yale College First Year Summer Research Fellowship. And so that's 10 weeks of independent science research in Yale labs. So I connected with an undergraduate student, and then I helped her go through the application process for this first year summer research fellowship. And you get paid $430 a week, again, over the course of 10 weeks. So it's $4,300 for the summer. And all basic science research is eligible. And there are also really cool kind of research communication, other sorts of like seminars that you and fellow scientists will be able to commune over the course of the summer and hear about each other's work, which I think is fabulous. Another thing I want to plug here is that about 85% of all first years receive funding. So the application process is a little bit involved in that it requires a personal statement and a research statement and letters of recommendation. But I will say that from the science side, an 85% acceptance rate for grants or anything else is like unheard of. So it's actually a really fabulous opportunity with a really, really strong chance that you will be able to get funding to work in a research lab. There's also the STARS Fellowship, which is a slightly different program. And so there are different programs run depending on what class year you are. So the STARS 1 program is specifically just for first years. And then there's the STARS Summer Research Program, which is after your first year into your sophomore year. And so on and so forth. I've also had students work with me through the STARS Fellowship. And again, it's a really great community of scientists who are exploring what it means to be a researcher in a variety of different STEM fields throughout Yale. And so a couple of others that I'll just throw up on this slide. There's the Yale College Dean's Research Fellowship, again, run through the Office of Science and Quantitative Reasoning. The Rosenfeld Science Scholars Program, if you are a mathematician, the Summer Undergraduate Math Research at Yale. I already mentioned the STARS Fellowship. And then through the Fellowships Office, there's also merit-based fellowships through the Office of Fellowships, and it's inclusive of all graduate students. So I hope that what you take away from all of this is that there's money available to you. You just have to go to the offices and ask for it, essentially. So go talk to OCS about your summer research awards. Go talk to fellowships about opportunities. Go make an appointment with Dean Sandy Chang and the Office of Science and Quantitative Reasoning to discuss funding options. If you want to get into a lab this summer to figure out whether you like doing research, which I highly, highly, highly recommend, not just for your own knowledge, but also to make you a competitive applicant for graduate school, go talk to these people. They know a lot and they are really here to help you all. And so complementary to doing research, there's also choosing a major and choosing a coursework at Yale. And I, again, want to start by dispelling the myth that the major that you have right now is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. It is very much not the case. In fact, many people, including myself, switch to related fields in graduate school. So I was a chemistry physics major in undergrad, and through a variety of different experiences, decided that chemistry research was not what I wanted to do. And so I am now at Yale in a PhD program for engineering, having never taken a single engineering course, but having strong interest and desire to want to do research that was at the intersection of chemistry, materials design, and engineering. And so it's very, very possible. Take courses that are interesting to you and choose a major with questions and answers that excite you. And if you get through 4 years and you're like, that was really interesting and I'm glad that I did it, but I actually don't think that biology research is for me. I think I maybe want to be in like computational bioinformatics, which is more on the CS end. That's totally fine. The journey of the 4 years is figuring out what you do and don't like. So supplement the lab-based research that you're doing with courses that really deepen your fundamental understanding of your field. I will say that as you're choosing courses, a number of STEM programs will require some level of mathematics or quantitative coursework. I think a couple of the grad programs that I was applying to required that you had math through like linear algebra or Diffie-Q or something along those lines. So I would say when in doubt, taking math classes is never a bad idea, but definitely the first pass is choosing courses with course descriptions, with professors, with topics that really excite you. And so as you're choosing these majors and as you're choosing these courses, again, you have a wealth of information available to you. Talk to graduate students, talk to me. As you can tell, I love talking about courses and what I liked and didn't like. Graduate students, TAs, in office hours, ask them about the courses that they really loved, but also really importantly, courses that they wish they had taken. I wished I had done more statistical modeling in my undergraduate coursework. It just didn't even cross my mind. And so I'm glad that I was able to take courses here at Yale that taught me how to code in R, for example, but that's something that I wish I had done in undergraduate. And then ask them too what courses they found helpful. But I think the moral of the story here is don't be afraid to explore. Yale is a phenomenal liberal arts institution because it really encourages you to think outside of your major and outside of your box. So some of my favorite courses in undergraduate were religion classes, were anthropology classes, were sociology classes. And that was because I was able to take like 3 of my STEM classes and then 1 class that I was just really interested in. And so we definitely encourage you to explore the phenomenal faculty across all fields that are available here at Yale. Okay, so now I'm going to get to another big question that we get, which is, how do I get into graduate school? And I guess the first thing that I'll say is if you are first or second year right now, don't be worried too much about this just yet, but we are instead just going to tell you what the different components of the graduate school application is. And so underscoring all of that is the fact that grad schools will very much evaluate you as a holistic candidate. So they're not going to put you in buckets based on your GPA and GRE scores. They're taking your whole package, reading it all, reading your personal statement, reading your letters of recommendation, and then evaluating you based on that. So it's difficult to say which of these is more important or less important than the others, but just some things for you to consider. So a high GPA is definitely a great way to demonstrate exceptional candidacy, but it is not the only way. Instead, think of your transcript as you showing off your interests. So your ability to take challenging courses, whether they're grad school courses or upper level undergrad courses, really push yourself and challenge yourself to take these courses, even if you think they might kick your butt a little bit. You can use your personal statement or perhaps letters of recommendation to discuss any outstanding obstacles and how you overcame them. If you're in your first year, second year, you've been at Zoom University for the past 2 years, or maybe this is your first time away from home, there are a lot of really important extenuating circumstances that can contribute to your success in the classroom. And so if in your first or second year, you really struggled for extenuating circumstances like a global pandemic, you can definitely use a personal statement or letters of recommendation to address that. There are also some graduate schools that will require the GRE. And if you are just coming out of high school, I would equate it pretty closely to like the SAT in that it's honestly kind of a test of how well you can take a test. And for that reason, it's beginning to be phased out or not required for applications, which I think is actually a really good thing. That being said, there are still some places that do require it, but maybe that will change by the time you're applying in 2 or 3 years from now. I want to emphasize here that if you or you know of people who are thinking about applying to law school or med school, studying for the GRE is very, very different from those intensive processes. When I was applying to graduate school, a lot of my friends were applying to med school and studying like crazy 30 hours a week for the MCAT. The GRE is very much not like that. I just bought a test prep book and studied for maybe a couple of hours in the month or 2 leading up to the test, and I did fine. And again, as I'm saying, the GRE is not terribly important to your, like a terribly great indicator of your overall success as a graduate student or a researcher. And so it's starting to be phased out. What I think is actually more important is the personal statement, because it's your opportunity to tell your story from your perspective. So talk about what you're really interested in, what you're passionate about, why you're qualified to go to graduate school, and why you're qualified to go to that particular graduate school. And so you don't have to have the answers to this right now, but as you get further along the process, starting to realize I'm really interested in Yale because of their, I'll use the same example, like bioinformatics program that is doing research at the intersection of XYZ. So really using the personal statement kind of as a persuasive essay of like, this is why I am a good candidate for this school and why this school is a good fit for me. There's also the recommendation letters, which I think actually complement your personal statement. So you are telling your story. Now is the opportunity to have other people highlight your story. And so when you're thinking about who to ask for recommendation letters, my advice is generally to think about like what combination of people can speak, yes, specifically and positively, but also speak about your different interesting components that make you who you are, make you a good researcher. So who can talk about your research skills, who can talk about your interest in the field, who can talk about your curiosity in the classroom, all of these things. And so thinking about the personal statement and recommendation letters is your opportunity to craft this like personal narrative, I think is the best way that I could phrase that. But I think overall, what is most important in grad school applications and admission to these different programs is, are you passionate about your scientific research? And what have you done to develop that passion so that you will take it forward into your graduate school research or your coursework as a master's student? And so just some general, very, very general, because again, this is a very individual journey for each of you, but some general tips for success, whether or not in 2 or 3 years from now, you do decide to go to graduate school, we think that these tips are just good in general. So as I already mentioned, take the courses that are really exciting to you. Don't be afraid to take that challenging course with that hard professor just because you think it's going to lower your GPA. And then at the same time too, don't be afraid to take that really interesting course in anthropology just because you're not an anthropology major. If it's interesting to you and you think that you will learn and grow from it, take the class. I think undergraduate is a really phenomenal, exciting opportunity to explore how to learn. And so hopefully if you're here, you love to learn. And so using all the resources available to you now is a really great tip. I would also say try out internships, clubs, sports, volunteer service opportunities, whether that's during the school year or during the summer. I've had a number of people say, I think I'm interested in going to graduate school, but I don't think I want to go into academia. Does it make sense for me to take this internship with a biotech company? Or should I just stay at Yale and do research for all 3 of my summers? And I say, try the thing that is exciting to you. Take that summer internship at that biotech company. Develop your community relationships via clubs or sports or volunteer service opportunities. Really, again, explore all the different opportunities that are available to you outside of lab and outside of the classroom. The next tip is one that I give so frequently, which is go to office hours and talk to faculty and also grad students as well. We have office hours too, but make these personal connections so that you can hear more about them, hear more about their research, hear more about their life trajectory. And then as you're doing that, reflect on your own personal interests and whether talking to these faculty members or graduate students is inspiring something in you. And as you're trying to uncover what your interests are, using, again, these grad students and faculty as resources to learn more about, they are on the path of what I think I want to do. So use them to learn how they got to where they are today. As I also emphasize, work in a lab, if nothing else. If you're interested in going to graduate school in a STEM field, use this opportunity to work in a lab, whether it's remotely, whether it's on the computer, whether it's getting into a wet lab. And while you're there, again, talk to grad students, talk to postdocs, both about their research and also about their life in general. We are humans, multi-dimensional humans too. I know you are all in the midst of midterms and are really overwhelmed probably, and you don't have any free time, but if and when you do have free time, read some scientific papers in a variety of different fields, even if it's just an abstract. Sometimes that's my form of procrastination is I'll go to environmental science and technology, which is a journal in my field, and I'll just be like, oh, someone's doing research on PFAS or someone's doing research about lead pipes. Not my area, but just interested in seeing what is going on so that you are fluent or at least conversant in the field in which you want to do research. And then lastly, as I've said, make appointments, talk to people, talk to OCS, talk to Sandy Chang, talk to fellowship advisors, just really get a sense of, if you are in your first or second year, what resources are available to you, because there are a lot. And I'm sure that I did not cover all of them. I'm sure that if you go to the fellowship's office, they will be like, that's all she talked about. We have all these other things. But again, they are the experts. So go make appointments, talk to them. People really want to help and see you succeed. And so with that, as I said, we are here to help. I started this presentation by laying this out as a really linear journey from starting at Yale to going to graduate school. But these questions will pop up and probably should pop up throughout your journey through Yale and beyond. So you might be saying, like, maybe I want to go to graduate school. And then you decide in a year from now, yes, I definitely want to go to graduate school. And then a year later, you're like, actually, do I want to go to graduate school? So wherever you are in this like really circuitous back and forth, crazy, drawn out process, please reach out to us. I've put my email, so holly.rudell. I've also put Meredith Mira's email. So Meredith is my direct boss, but she's also an advisor at the Office of Career Strategy. So if you're thinking about summer internships, you're thinking about those funding resources I mentioned earlier, she's a phenomenal resource, as is everyone else at OCS. But she is my direct boss. So she is on there too. And then Sandy Chang, who, as I said, works at the Office of Science and Quantitative Reasoning. Talk to him about all of his phenomenal resources, both for doing research in lab and then just generally science education as a whole. And so with that, I will say thank you for your time. Wow. Yes, crushing it in terms of time. So happy to take any questions, or I can let you all go and enjoy the rest of your kind of gray fall day. I see that there's something in the chat. Yep. Thank you, Tom. Sorry, I should have put your email in there as well. That is Tom's email if you are interested in advising on the social sciences or the humanities. As I said, use Yale as an opportunity to explore all of the different fields. So if you start out saying, I want to be a math major, and then you take a philosophy class and you're like, just kidding, this is exactly what I want to do and go to grad school for, keep Tom in mind as you're going throughout this journey. So now I will officially stop. And please, if you have questions, please put them either in the, I put them in the Q&A, I think I might have disabled the chat. So put them in the Q&A.
In the Q&A, Holly. And the question is, I heard that rec letters are the most important aspect of a graduate school application. Do you agree?
I would say rec letters and personal statement are probably the most important. The rec letter from your research advisor, so whether that's an advisor that you establish a relationship with in your sophomore year and continue through your senior year, or it's just your senior thesis advisor, I would say that letter is really, really important. And will be looked at most heavily, but it will be read in conjunction with your personal statement. So as I was saying, using rec letters and your personal statement to kind of supplement each other so that you're telling a cohesive, really like full narrative. I think that's my general thoughts on rec letters. I also usually say, and this is perhaps down the road for some of you, but because you want to craft this like cohesive narrative, I usually recommend that people have a draft of their personal statement done in the fall so that when they're asking their letter writers, they can send a draft of their personal statement and be like, this is how I'm presenting myself. And then perhaps even asking those faculty to highlight specific aspects of their research skills or their curiosity or what have you. So again, using those two things kind of as interlocking puzzle pieces, I guess. But great question.
Holly, another question just came through in the Q&A. Are extracurriculars important at all?
I'd be curious what you have to say, Tom. To me, they're important for like a holistic self-development and also to maintain your sanity, but they're not really evaluated in terms of like your admission to graduate school. Someone won't look at someone who like goes sailing and like, oh, this person is clearly a better researcher than this person who does not sail. Like that isn't really factored in. But I think that if you're interested in a variety of things, it can like have ripple effects across your personal life. Like research in school is not everything. So if you have other diverse interests, that can actually make you more focused in the like academic space. But I don't know, Tom, do you have other things to say besides that cliche that I just...
I would say my application was pretty meaty with extracurriculars, but I don't know that that had any bearing on my acceptance to graduate school. So the point is to say, well, maybe to my master's degree, and that might have affected my graduate school trajectory. The point is to say you should be pursuing all things you enjoy doing. And the beautiful thing here is, I think we mentioned at the top of the hour, you've just come off your high school careers where you were heavily focused on this issue of extracurriculars to get into college. And I think college, of course, or university life will present even more of these opportunities for you all. At the same time, I think, we would all do well from enjoying our coursework as much as our extra or co-curriculars as well. So I would leave it there. And another question, Holly, comes to you. Is getting into grad school harder or easier if one spends a couple of years working after their undergraduate degree?
Oh, that's such a great question. I really appreciate it So I'll just start by saying my personal experience was that I took a year off, but in that year I taught middle school. So I like was hanging out with some 12-year-olds. So I was not doing research in that year, but in that year, I was definitely able to craft a stronger application because my personal statement was more focused and more directed towards what I wanted to do in graduate school. And to be honest, I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do in graduate school until I had time away from like the chaos of undergrad, if that makes sense. And so that's the first part of like it's sometimes taking a step away from like the ivory tower institution to reassess what you actually want to do. And also, if you work in a company and you see like, oh, all of these other people that are doing the jobs that I want to do have a PhD or have a master's, that also is like, again, motivational fire for you to pursue graduate school. And so having that can also be really helpful. So that's one component. Another component that I'll say is that what I see most typically, honestly, in like biological sciences is people taking a year or two and working in a lab. So working at an NIH lab, working in a lab somewhere for a year or two. I will say that's definitely not required because there are tons of people who go straight from undergrad. But I will say, particularly in those like biomedical sciences, I would say taking a year or two to go work full time in a lab. Again, to get a sense of like what does it mean to do research full time, but it also can make you a stronger applicant. So I'm kind of rambling, but the moral of the story being that sometimes it is really program specific. In my case, taking time off, but not doing research was good for my mental health, but didn't really affect me all that much in my application. But sometimes doing some research, like post-bac research, will make you a stronger applicant. It's really program and field specific. And so talk to your faculty, get a sense of what kind of the norms and strategies are in your particular field.
I think that's all we have for questions. Or at least none have come through in the little Q&A.
And again, like if more questions come up as soon as we end the Zoom call, you're like, shoot, I meant to ask this. Feel free to shoot me an email or set up a time to just chat through. You don't necessarily have to have specific questions. You just want to talk through what it means to go to graduate school. Definitely feel free to set up an appointment. You can do that by going into the Yale career link at the Office of Career Strategy website. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and just say thank you all for your time, and hopefully I will get to talk to you all soon.